Hello, it's Thursday. So I've been looking to try some more freeform crochet. So obviously everything I do is kind of freeform in that I don't really work from patterns, but I finally found like the ultimate inspiration images as to what it is that I'm actually kind of like looking for here. So let me introduce you to Carolyn McFadden Art, right? This is their Instagram. This is what I've been looking for. This is what I want to try and do. So this is what we're going to be trying to do today. I have a whole bucket of scraps left over from the tapestry video, well, at least not a whole bucket, but like some scraps. So I still have a little bit of scrap yarn left over from when we made the tapestry, and that's just where it's currently hanging. I cleaned my room. Look, there's actually room to move around. Oh wait, am I showing spoilers? I don't think I'm showing spoilers. The next episode of SoulSilver will be next week, by the way. So not a huge amount, but some. And that's what we're going to be working with today. So the rules for making these seem to be fairly straightforward. Basically, you start with either a magic ring or a chain piece. It doesn't really matter what your base starting point is. You vary your stitch sizes. So I'm going to go with the recommended like single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet as like my stitches that I'm going to be sticking to. And the third rule is just if your stitches start leaning backwards, yeah, add increases. So that seems pretty straightforward. Now I'm saying all of this not having tried it yet, so I'll be like adding in anything that I work out along the way if there is anything else to add, but we'll see. And I just think this could be a really fun exercise in like mindful crocheting, kind of like how coloring in is kind of that nice like peacefulness, instead of like actively designing like I do with all of that. This could be just a nice chill way to just be like working on something that isn't a massive blanket. So we're just gonna try it and see if we like it today. Maybe get some coasters out of the deal. So this is my bucket of scraps. Let's see if we can tilt you downwards a little bit so you can see it a little better. There's not that many. We were honestly pretty careful to use them all up. Now this is my favorite reference image of hers, and I think it's because it's got that really, first of all, it's pretty colors, but I think restricting the color palette is a really good idea. So I'm going to go through these scraps and kind of like try and sort them into like pleasing arrangements. Get that tub out the way. Okay, so got a big pile of, we've got lots of neutrals in the mix here. And like these are big enough chunks of yarn to actually do something with as well. So we're not going to be wasteful or anything. Things are a little bit of a mess. That's okay. Sometimes life is messy. Okay, some of these pieces are just too short to really make more than 1 or 2 stitches, so I am just kind of eliminating them. Just to avoid frustration. But I think we have some pretty clear winners appearing in the mix. So I don't mind if I have to include like other colors from like the wall behind me in this, but I want to make sure that I'm at least using these as the starting point, like the base of what we're doing. So I think that the blues and purples are probably where we're going to go with this, just because they are the most like cohesive color grouping. I'm going to try and pick maybe 5 colors out and just like clear the rest of this away. And then we'll get our hook and we'll give this a go. Okay, this is making me really happy. I don't mind that in the mix too. That's kind of making me sad. Do I want to remove that as well and make it like this? I think this is what's making me happy. The thing I think I'm going to struggle with the most here is the like randomization of how many stitches to put where. So I'm going to just try and wing it on a first one here, but I do have my trusty dice here if I need someone to like step in and supervise. There we go. We are ready for business. So I'm going to start in, I think blue is the way to go, and we're going to start with the magic ring starting point first. Okay, step 1 accomplished. We have started with a magic ring. We have a next color selected. So I think 1 color for each like lap around is how I want to do things here. So let's just change colors there. And attach some purple. Oh, that's only a tiny little bit of purple. Let's attach a slightly longer bit of purple. And in this row, I want to make sure that we pay attention to rules 2 and 3. I want to vary my stitch heights and I want to make sure I'm putting enough increases to keep it flat. I'm gonna lean on my own history here and put an increase into each stitch, but I'm gonna vary those stitch heights and just see what it ends up looking like. Oh, it's already fun not having to keep track of the numbers. Okay, so now we should change to another color. Please note that I did not use pink for my starting point so that we didn't end up with a sphincter. So you've got to watch out for some of that stuff with color theory sometimes. No accidental sphincters today. Let's grab, oh, that's only a little strand again. Can always incorporate those later, but for now I want to have sturdy strands to work from. I want to do something a little different again. So yeah, I feel like we're starting to like pull up a little bit, so I think it's time to add another increase. So I continue to work my way around the piece, swapping colors every row and just like filling it out with whatever stitches felt right. I really wanted to make sure that I ended up with like a blobby kind of shape. I wanted it to curve in and I wanted it to curve out. I wanted to have just like lots of ups and downs. And one thing that I just noticed right away was that it was so much more peaceful to just be focusing on forming every stitch instead of focusing on counting every stitch, if that makes sense. Okay. So that's an example of what rule number 3 is referring to, I think. So you see how my stitches as they're worked, this one here is kind of like tilted backwards. It means that I'm going to do an increase or like basically work 2 stitches into the same stitch to mean that my work is now straight up and down and tilted forwards again. So I think that's just like an acquired thing. And I think that you can learn pretty quickly. Like basically if your work is starting to like pucker upwards, you're not increasing enough. And if your work is starting to like wibble wobble around the edges, you're increasing too much. So every so often I've just been putting it down on the desk just to make sure it's still sitting flat, but so far so good. Now I did end up abandoning my 1 color per round methodology pretty quickly by like row 4 or 5, and I just was feeding it the scraps at the lengths those scraps were. It just gave us a much more interesting mix of colors as we went. You'll see the scraps that I'm using are not very long either. Honestly, it was all just going so well, I decided to keep going until I ran out of those colors. Okay, that ate up all that yarn pretty quickly. This is what we've ended up with. It's very scruffy on the back, so I might just have to give it a haircut real quick. Okay, so that's what we ended up with. And I might have liked this process just a little too much. So like, as I said, as I was making it, honestly, it was just really refreshing to not have to constantly be writing numbers down. Maybe I've just got a little bit of design fatigue or something, but just like being able to just focus on just like crafting each individual stitch, it felt really good and it chewed through that yarn really quickly. But one thing that I've learned is to work over the top of your yarn ends as you go. So we're going to incorporate that in our next attempt. I do think I am suffering from my like innate instinct to make things even though, because this ended up looking very circular. So there's a couple of things I can do to try and counteract that. The first being to try using a chain for a base instead of a magic ring, so we don't even have a round to start with. Now we're going to need some more colors though, because we just ate through. Like that's all we have left. Those are just the tails I trimmed off. So like, you beauty. I don't really want to do one that's just like grey and beige. So I might have to dig a little deeper for some color options for this next one. Okay, I went through my yarn. I think anything in this bag is probably pretty fair game. away like that. No, I like it. Okay, we've got 6 colors. 3, 4, 5, 6. Some dice to help me if I need to. So the way this one works is you're supposed to just sort of start with a base chain. I want to end up with roughly around the same size as this, but maybe in more interesting shape. So let's, I don't know, let's chain a little bit. So I'm going to start with a chain of 8, I guess. And we're just going to work around this chain, I guess. Okay, so that is our new starting point, and I'm just going to build up another one same way we did for the first one. Now, because my yarn is clearly bigger chunks this time, I'm going to use the dice to tell me how many stitches I need. I've got a D20 here, but I also have like a D100. So I think I'll use the D20. And I'm just going to use that to tell me how many stitches to do in each color before I change back. Because like, let me just check here for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Okay, cool. So the longest color stretch here we've got is 38 stitches. So maybe I'll do the D20, whatever number comes up, times 2. And that's how many stitches I'll do in each color. Yeah, all right, we have a plan. So this next color we will work, that's a 15, we'll work 30 stitches before we change. Okay, I did that for 1 row and I'm immediately abandoning the idea just because I was enjoying not counting so much that I think I want to go back to not counting. So, I do think there is some promise in the dice idea, but I just don't think it's the right idea for me for today. We're going back to winging it. Okay, this one is turning out really round again, so I just want to try something a little bit odd and just like add a new bit of base to work around. Just maybe not that many, maybe just a little one. So like add a chain 3. So it's just a little bit to work around and we'll just see how we like it. Also, I remembered to work over the top of my colours this time. The first chain bump seems to have worked okay, so I'm going to add another one here, but I'm going to do a bigger one. We're going to be braver this time. And I might do a third one here, just to like see what kind of shapes we're making. I should have stopped this one a couple of rows ago, but I'm having a little bit too much fun with it. So I'm just going to keep going until it feels like it's done. It's getting a little big though. Okay, so there is our second one done. This one here based on a line, and this one here was way harder. So if you're just going to like have an attempt at this, start with the round one first for sure, because this one here particularly, it was those spoke details that made it more difficult, which I didn't really need to add in, but I got carried away. Just keeping it flat became way trickier. I did learn from my first example though, and I did weave in most of my ends as we went. So we don't have any of this mess going on. That said, I do think they look like kind of fun puzzle pieces, and I can already see how this technique could be used in so many different projects to create like tie-dye effects and like used for dragon hide. I always go straight to dragon because it's me, but even just like I'm eyeing off my canvases as I sit here going, I could just like make enough to cover a square and just sew them on, and it's a pretty cool piece of artwork. or just make a few more of them and starch them and hang them on the wall. So we've done round and we've done lines. And there's one more that I want to give a go to, and that is just like joining a bunch of like smaller ones together. And I will be using these little bits for that and going for just a little bit more chaos. I do think that this one here suffered from the fact that I had so much yarn I could use for it. And so there was a little bit less randomness. Like with this one here, I was very limited by the length of the pieces of yarn, and I kind of leaned into that and we could use it. For this one here, I could just go as long as I wanted to. And I tried to incorporate that dice thing, but honestly, like I'm enjoying the whole not counting part of this. So there must be a happy mid-ground in there somewhere. But in any case, we have lots of like little pieces of various colors here, and particularly like this orange with the yellow and this color here. Like there's just a very happy moment happening right here. Get rid of the black. We'll get rid of the warm colors. No, it's not the warm colors that are the problem. But yeah, I'm just going to try and use up literally all of these little like scrappy bits in some visually pleasing way. And we're going to create one that's made out of like multiple bases and just see how that goes. Trying to join them as flat as possible. But did we manage it? That's the real question here. No matter what I do, I keep gravitating back towards this like blue, pink, purple color palette. So I'm just going to stop fighting it and finish this piece off in those colors. Really did think this was going to end up a little warmer than it was, but oh well. Okay, so there we go. There is my third attempt with multiple bases to start with. I really thought I was going to start with 3, but I ended up just using 2 and joined them in the round. It has left a little bit of a hole in the middle there, so I don't really know how successful it was, but it was definitely worth trying. So let's just pull in all 3 examples there that we tried today. So this is definitely something I want to do again, and I just want to say that while these are very like chaotic in nature, which is kind of what like it's kind of their appeal, you don't have to think too hard about them, I actually think that the same techniques could be used to create quite intentional color markings and shapes, and that could be very interesting as well, for future canvas projects, for future dragon projects, for future like massive projects. I also kind of want to make a cardigan out of them, but that's a whole other urge. It's the seasonal wearable urge that I'm sure all crafters get. And then they remember how long it takes to make a wearable and they get over it or they do it. But yeah, we have these 3 very interesting little puzzle pieces here now, and I feel like they could fit together in quite a pleasing way if we made a few more of them. So maybe even like for a desk mat. So I will be continuing to use my scraps like this in future. It's so much more fun than like cutting them up for stuffing, though that is a very productive use for scraps as well. I do think that this one here is my favorite. I think the round one is, but I think a big part of that is the colors that were used for it, because this one here I'm finding appealing, but I don't like the hole in the middle of it. And this one here just feels like I was trying too hard. Yeah, hopefully this gives you some ideas on how to use your scrap yarn in future. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. Did you like the round one, the chain, or the double base? I'm assigning them identifiers for your convenience. They don't have official names. But yeah, and that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I could inspire you a little bit. And I will see you next week with the next SoulSilver episode, because I'm still working on that behind the scenes. Okay, bye.